Well, we are back from the winter break here in 2025 at Lokomotive Leipzig and find ourselves in second on the Free Liga table, and today we take on the two teams who are just below us and looking in on the promotion spots, and hopefully we can make sure that this time around we are in a good position to go up to the 2 Bundesliga. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 25 of the Leipzig Loko with Lokomotive Leipzig here on Sean Does FM. I hope you are doing well, and coming up today we take on the teams in 5th and 4th on the Free Liga table. Both of those games are at home. First up we do take on the Schalke II in our first game back from the winter break, and then off the back of taking on Bayreuth away from home off camera, we will return to take on Eintracht Braunschweig, who are currently on 4th on the table and could be a team who could over the course of today's episode sneak themselves into one of those promotion spots. Of course, that is not the case with the Schalke team, as they cannot get promoted out of this division. Also a bit of an injury catch-up, as well as a little bit of transfer business that we have done, seeing as we are halfway through the January transfer window. And by the time we get into that second game as well, we might have done a bit more once we get past deadline day, so it could be a busy one. If you're looking forward to it, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated. But we now find ourselves in second on the Free Liga table, having picked up a couple of decent results off the back of yesterday's episode. If you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. We did pick up a draw in that episode against FC Bayern. It was an absolute classic, that one, grabbing a late goal through Michael Wosu to pick up a draw late in that one. But before then, unfortunately, could not get a result in a top-of-the-table clash at that stage against Heidenheim, who for all of the second half were down to 10 men. Off the back of that, we've just played 2 competitive games before we did enter that winter break. First up, we took on RW Essen at home. This one, disappointing 0-0 draw, albeit we're missing Michael Wosu, who got suspended off the back of a yellow card in that prior draw of Bayern, and that might have been a difference maker, the form that he has been in. But thankfully, off the back of that, we continue to actually be performing a little bit better, it looks like, away from home. A 2-0 win over Wehen Wiesbaden. That was thanks to first half goals nice and early through Julian Weigl and Osman Atilgan. So it does mean that going into the second part of the season, just over halfway off the back of that winter break, we are in second, 2 points behind Heidenheim, 2 points clear of Ingolstadt, and 1 further point back to Eintracht Braunschweig. At this stage, they could close that gap over the course of today's episode before we do take them on in that second game, but hopefully we can continue to pick up the points and keep ourselves in one of those automatic promotion spots. But we are in the month of January, and it does mean that some transfer business has happened. Just some minor stuff though it is. We've got rid of a player on loan, and that player was Isadogan. Once we go over not to the left hand side but the right hand side, he was loaned out and he is going to be getting paid around about 80% of his wages from Ottensen, so I thought it was a good deal to get rid of him for the remainder of the season. We're not going to be renewing his contract anyway, so it's probably the last time that Isadogan would have spent any time at Lokomotive Leipzig. He was just lurking down in our second team off the back of us signing Haasman earlier in the weeks. Isadogan is out on loan and probably won't be at the club next season with only that 3-star potential, but it does mean we get those wages for the most part off of our books. Also looking at hopefully getting rid of Tobias Dombrowa, either through a sale or through a loan during the course of today's episode, with January transfer deadline day coming in between the 2 games that we are going to show you guys, and also a quick injury update as well. We briefly had all of our players back from injury going into the start of the second part of the season, but unfortunately, Kevin Zizek, his ankle continues to be a big issue this time. He has twisted it in a friendly draw against Eintracht Frankfurt, our senior affiliates. That was actually quite a good result off the back of that. We also picked up a win over Zwickau, so 2 friendlies coming back in to the restart of the season, but he's going to be out for 8 days to 2 weeks. He might be back for that second game of today's episode, but definitely will not be featuring as we are about to take on the Schalke II. But I think that's everything I need to catch you guys up on going in to the second part of the season. And first up, we do take on the Schalke II. These guys have been right up there for most of the season, but just recently have started to fall down the table a little bit behind the likes of us, as well is Eintracht Braunschweig. We played them in one of our first 3 games of the season before we did just change our roles in our tactic and did suffer a late 1-0 defeat, but hopefully with this one being at home, we can get some revenge for that. They were predicted to be down in 14th, albeit predictions not really applicable for these teams who can't get promoted, but as I said, they've been up there for most of the season, and we're in okay form prior to the break, as you can see before that one friendly that they have played. 2 wins and 2 losses. Interestingly too, those losses did come at home while the wins did come away, so quite similar to how we have been performing recently, but that was their form prior to going away for the winter break. Hopefully we can get them here at home in our first game back, and we'll come back later, show you guys highlights from that game against Beirut before we do take on and have a look at Eintracht Braunschweig for that second game of today's episode, as well as see if we do any more transfer business on deadline day or in the rest of the window. But hopefully, as I said, we can continue to pick up the points and stay in an automatic promotion spot, and we'll start things off by trying to get some revenge on the Schalke seconds. And here are the team sheets for our first game back from the winter break. In terms of us with just that one injury, we are very, very close here to full strength. Just that one change compared to what probably would have been happening with Schimpf on the bench instead of Zizek. But otherwise, it's a very strong lineup there. Schalke, they are going with a 4-2-3-1. And hopefully, as I said, we can stay in one of those automatic promotion spots. And just shy of the 5-minute mark, we get the first highlight in this game. It's a throw in our favour down this right-hand side, albeit deep. And now we actually lose the ball there. It's a poor start, but thankfully, we do get it back there off the back of them trying to square that ball. And thankfully, it was Eaglezetta who did get in the way. I believe it was him who did miss out on the ball. And now it is Ernesto cutting inside who loses it and leaves a bit of space from where he should have been there. A ball's played into the mixer. It's a dangerous one. And it's a terrible start here in our first game back from the winter break. Simon Kozak will head that one home. Unfortunately, Haasman can't do much about that. And it is a dreadful start, just really sloppy on the ball in this opening highlight. Once we nearly got called out and Ernesto cut inside, lost possession, and from there they found some space down that left-hand side. And Kojic, that header, too much power on it, looks like, for Haasman. And we go 1-0 down early. And it's taken nearly another half hour for us to get the next highlight in this game. Interesting to see that the Ingolstadt are beating Heidenheim, so it could be a bit of shuffling up going on here in the top 4 off the back of this game. But again, Schalke do get in behind. Thankfully this time Kojic was offside, but this first half at the moment dominated by Schalke, but we are still thankfully only 1-0 down. And that was it for the first half in our first game back from the winter break in this episode. And as you could tell by the highlights that we did see, we did absolutely nothing in that first half. Conceded that early goal, being sloppy on the ball a few times, and only 2 shots in this game, none on target. Now, Jamal Ziani actually picked up a knock in that first half, also is down to a 6.4, so Schimpf can come on for him and hopefully do a bit better in the second half. Also, Leon Heinke will come off on a yellow card for Mark Lamptey, but definitely need to give the guys a bit of a rev up going in to the second half off the back of adjusting some opposition instructions if we need to, but a poor first half will get things back underway, 1-0 behind. And nearly 10 minutes into the second half, the first highlight here is a corner in our favour. Unfortunately, can't quite pick out Lamptey there at the near post. They clear that one away, but Tilgan does get it back for us now. Wosu with a long-range shot. That one nearly just dips under the crossbar, but unfortunately it clips it and goes over. And now we have a free kick. Eaglezetta gets his head on the end of that one, but unfortunately that one also goes over the bar, but encouraging start here to the second half. However, we are still 1-0 behind. And just past the hour mark, we're going to make a change here to our goalkeeping role. We're going to move Haasman back to a sweeper keeper on defence for the remainder of this game. Last time he was in that role, he had a bit of a shocker, but it does just feel like we could be doing a bit more going forward in this game, and maybe that will start at the back, so we'll try that. Still 1-0 behind with a half hour left, and in fact, right off the back of that, might even be before it can take place, there is a highlight starting, and Schalke are on the ball. They play that one back to their goalkeeper. Also looks like he's a sweeper keeper coming well out of the box to try and get them back on the front foot. Bad read there, and now Guzzi does start to get going forward. Long range shot, and that one just goes high and wide, and thankfully still only 1-0 down with just under a half hour left. And just entering the last 20 minutes of this game, and it is a corner now for Schalke as they do look to grab a cushion goal. Yet again, Kojic gets his head on the end of that one, but thankfully just goes over the bar. Yet again, Schalke are still on the front foot in this game, but to be fair, we have picked it back a little bit during the second half, but I think it's time for us now to make some substitutions. Punzel Ernesto on a 7, but I think he was the player who did make the mistake that led to that first goal. So Ben Luca Fischer on loan from Eintracht Frankfurt can come on for him. Also, Eric Vufak for Linus Zimmer, who was struggling, and as well as that, we'll bring on Bulland for Osman Atilgan out left. Those will be all of our subs remaining, and 20 minutes left to try and grab a point back in this one. Also, we might actually switch our goalkeeper back to defend. Not too sure what I was thinking there, because just make sure we don't concede any more silly goals. We will put our wingers on attack, and hopefully that helps us grab an equaliser in this last 20 minutes. And only a few minutes off the back of making those slight tactical changes as well as substitutions, there is a free kick now in our favour. To be fair, most of the highlights in the second half have actually been in our favour. Nice ball there from Lampien Owosu. Does just find a brief bit of space there, plays that back to Fischer. Now Ricardo Grimm back there to Lamptey. Nice chance here inside the box for Owosu, but of course that one comes off the post, and we are still 1-0 behind. And we are just about to enter injury time in this game. Might actually be time for us to go onto an attacking mindset, albeit just before I can put that one through, there is a highlight here. Schalke with a throw, and it is on that far side, but great work there from Ricardo Grimm, and he gets the ball back for us here. Mike Owosu does get in behind. He's from a tight angle, but thankfully squares it, and Anton Bulland will poke that one home, so we're definitely going to drop back to positive off the back of that, and hopefully at least get a point from this game. That would be well deserved, I feel like, for our second half performance. First half, we were absolute rubbish, but yet again, Mike Owosu is in the thick of things for the goals that we are scoring here at Lokomotive Leipzig. It's taken the full 90 minutes, but we finally grab an equaliser in this game, and now the stats exactly even, but unfortunately off the back of that, we can't create any more chances, and that looks like a fairly well-deserved 1-1 draw, especially looking at those stats. Very little in between the two teams in this game. First one back from the winter break, so unfortunately a few drop points there at home, but not against the bad team in the Schalke seconds this time. It was us who grabbed a late goal to get an equaliser. Of course, last time early in the season, they grabbed a late goal back at home to pick up a 1-0 win. So we'll tell the guys we'll take it, because we certainly didn't play as well as we can, and hopefully we can build on that and start to pick up a few more points. And as you can see, some interesting permutations to that result could be coming up. Eintracht Braunschweig do now have a game in hand on the top 3, and we all drop points on that match day. So there is a chance by the time we come back, things could be a lot closer at the top of the table. And we are back with the highlights, as we did take on Beirut away from home off camera. As you can see in the first half, we did pick up a penalty, which thankfully Ziani did put away. But with only a few minutes left, as you can see, a long ball forward somehow. Most of our defence did get caught out on that one. Not too sure why. That is a really frustrating goal to concede that late, and especially with the lack of chances that they did create there. You can see the stats. That was a game we should have been winning, but can only pick up 1 point there away from home. So starting to pick up quite a few draws in our last couple of games in the league. I think we're unbeaten in about 7 now, but 5 of those have been draws. So it does mean while we continue to pick up points, they haven't been quite as many as we would have been hoping for. And because of that, and the fact that Eintracht Braunschweig have actually gone on a good winning run going into this game where we are about to play them, we are now back in that familiar spot from around about the same time last season, outside of that top 3 and looking in, and it's starting to feel all too familiar from last season when we did just stuff up a little bit too much in that second part of the season. So because of that, going into this matchup where we do take on the informed team, I am going to change our tactical style yet again, this time going with the wing play option. So hopefully this will do a job and get us back on another run like that change of roles did earlier in the season. We aren't playing too bad with the fluid counter-attack, but unfortunately just feels like the game's trying to tell us we could be doing something different, which could help us pick up some better results. Because going back and have a look at the schedule and getting rid of the friendlies, you can see not a lot of green dots of late, quite a few orange ones, but ideally we would be picking up more green ones, and it does feel like maybe we need to make a change and try and get on the front foot, unlike last season when around about the same time we did drop down and fade away out of the promotion hunt. Also a little bit of a transfer update off the back of deadline day. Yet again, we have loaned out one of our players here at Lokomotive Leipzig. This time it was Tobias Domgoa. Similar case there to Isadogan. He won't be getting a contract going into next season actually, he was on much more of a wage than Isadogan, so thankfully Eichstadt have taken him for the rest of the season. About 80% of his wage is being paid by those guys, so Tobias Dombloa is on his way out of the door, as I said. Probably won't feature again here at the club with that potential and him not having a contract in line for next season. But next up for us, we do play a big game, 3rd versus 4th on the table, as we take on the informed team in the league at the moment. It is fair to say, in Eintracht Braunschweig, as you can see from that recent form, these guys have been on an absolute tear of late, 5 straight wins as they do come into this one, albeit one of those was a friendly, but their winning run might have gone on even longer in the Free League with the surge that they have been making up the table. They were predicted to be finishing in 2nd, and they could find themselves close to that media prediction by the end of today's episode, and even potentially on top if they do pick up a win. In fact, whatever team wins this game will end up on top, because as you can see, Heidenheim and Ingolstadt have played one more game than us, and both of those teams did drop points in their most recent outing. Heidenheim suffered a 2-0 defeat away there at Elversberg, and Ingolstadt, they also suffered a defeat 2-1 at home against the FC Bayern Munich 2nd, so a chance here for us to actually rise up the table quite considerably, and if we win this game, because of goal differential, we will go on top, but if we lose it, we certainly won't be out of the race, but we will be just a few points behind the likes of Ingolstadt and Heidenheim, and as I said, looking quite similar to the situation that we did find ourselves in around about this time last season. Going into this one, thankfully, no injury concerns, so Kevin Zizek can make his way back from this one from the bench and will come back shortly and hopefully rise up to top place on the table, but it will be a tough ask as we host the informed team in the league in Eintracht Braunschweig. And here are the team sheets for this clash, quite a big one. As I said, whoever wins will go on top of the table. We are the same in terms of our starting 11 from that first game today, but Kevin Zizek makes his way onto the bench for this one. There are the informed team also going with a 4-3-3. Hopefully, we catch them out with the switch in tactical style and can make a big move up the table to go top of the league. And just past the 20-minute mark, we eventually get the first highlight in this game. The opposition today are in the all-white, lovely New Zealand colours, of course, and then Leopold tries to play a ball into the mix, but thankfully Egolzeta does clear that one, but poor pass there looking for Ziani, and they do get in behind. Big chance there as he does get in behind Egolzeta. Thankfully, though, blast that one over the bar so far. We have well and truly been on the back foot. Not a great start for our wing play system, but thankfully, still 0-all coming up to the half-hour mark. And that was it for the first half in the second game of today's episode. I think a draw here would actually suit the likes of Heidenheim and Ingolstadt, so they'd probably be quite happy with this result. And to be fair, it would keep things quite close as well. Definitely preferable to a draw, but so far, the wing play doesn't seem to be working. We'll just give it a few more minutes in the second half, and hopefully we'll kick into gear once we tell these guys they need to get their act into gear and also go positive to start off the second half. Also, with Ziani being on a yellow card and a 6.2, we'll give Kevin Zizek a run in the second half, and hopefully, off the back of this rev up, can do a bit more in the second half as we'll get things back underway, still 0-all. And nearly at the hour mark, we get our next highlight in this game. It's only the second one of this entire game. So far, it's been a very quiet affair, still looking to try and do something with this wing play system. Unfortunately, somehow, Ernesto does not win the race to that ball, and Eintracht here will get a chance to do something, albeit from outside the box. Jacob here, yet again Ernesto tries to put some pressure on him, but can't win the ball, and they just keep it here inside of our halves. They're camping now inside the right area of the field for them, but hopefully they play a long ball forward, which we can win. We're putting a little bit of pressure on them there through Kevin Zizek, but unfortunately they pick some holes in our marks. Does get in behind, good ball there, but thankfully that shot a little bit weak and straight into the path of Haasman. Only a few minutes later, they do have a corner. Was just thinking about changing some stuff off the back of that. Game gets a little bit freezy. Thankfully, we do clear that one away, albeit Marks is back in possession. Owosu will head that one away, and now Ferrell, I believe that is, or Ferrai probably, not Ferrell. We'll see you soon when we do see the name in a bit more detail, but it is now Jacob who is on the ball after Ferrari. I think it will be, otherwise that's an unfortunate name. Did have a chance now. Ujay again gets him behind, and yet again Haasman comes up with a big save. But I think it's fair to say in this first hour we've been pretty awful trying to play with that wing play. So we'll go back to the old reliable for us in the fluid counter-attack. And also, while we are here, we might just make sure that the set pieces are right, because that was something which was not the case at the start of this game when we did switch to the wing play. We'll also just make sure opposition instructions here are sorted out. And off the back of that, we might just see what happens on the rest of this highlight before we do make some changes. There's a few players have gone down to red hearts, but again, Fadai here will put this one into the mixer for this corner. Thankfully, Lucas Search will head that one away, albeit might still have a chance, but thankfully that highlight does now stop. A few players are down to red hearts. We'll bring on Tim Lehman for Julian Weigel and also Anton Bulland for Osman Atilgan. And with a half hour left, still 0-0, but hopefully the tactical change can give us a bit more in this last part of the game. And just entering the last 20 minutes of this one, we get our first proper highlight since we did go back to our fluid counter-attacking style, which did pick up a win against these guys earlier in the season, 2-1 away from home. We nearly get the ball back there through a double team, but unfortunately you can't quite. They switch that one out to the left-hand side, and now Ernesto misses a header, and Clark there does get in behind, but thankfully that shot is blocked, and I think that will keep it at 0-0. Indeed, the highlight does end, and now Michael Wosu has picked up a yellow card down to a red heart. Tawog Biddy will come on for him, and also Linus Zimmer down to a red heart, so we'll bring on Eric Vufak with our last couple of substitutions. Also, might just try and play fullbacks on support instead of wing backs and hope that that might make us a bit more solid at the back. Hopefully less balls over the top that do catch us out in these last 15 minutes. Still 0-0. In fact, now there's a highlight down the other end, a free kick in our favour. They head that one away somewhat, but Heinke switches that one out to Ogbidi, albeit a bit slow on the ball, but thankfully Vufak tracks back nicely there, so maybe that's a sign already that the fullback role will suit us just a little bit more. We hoof that one deep, eventually get it back there through Lehman, fresh off of the bench, just making some room here down this left-hand side. Massive chance there, lovely ball for Zizek, but unfortunately that one comes off the crossbar. Still 0-0 as we start to enter the last 10 minutes. And we're just about into the last 5 minutes of this game, and it does feel like we're just starting to get on top of our opposition here. So with that in mind and needing a goal ideally to go top of the league, we'll put both our wingers on an attacking duty. And also Ricardo Grimm, over the past few seasons, has been a central midfielder on attacks. With that in mind, we might also move him onto that role, adjust some opposition instructions, and hopefully in these last couple of minutes, we can hopefully grab a winner and go top of the league. And indeed, we have created one more highlight in these last couple of minutes off the back of those changes. And it does start here with Harsman, who is on the ball. We'll pump that deep, and unfortunately, though, Kevin Zizek can't win it back for us. Now they play a ball over the top, and Jakob does get in behind. We'll square that one. Thankfully, Kiprit with a poor header. What is that from our goalkeeper? Harsman has just had an absolute shocker. He is still a goalkeeper on defend, so can't even blame the sweeper keeper for that. We'll have to watch the replay here, but that is a big costly error, I fear, that has cost us some points in this clash. He tries to catch it, doesn't. Instead of diving on the ball, runs out to get it. And goalkeepers are fine in FM23. I absolutely love this game. It's a great time. That is so frustrating. Off the back of that, we will go on to attacking and hopefully get some justice off the back of that highlight. But unfortunately, we don't. Somehow Harsman has still got a 7.1 Are You Sure FM, despite the fact he has cost us a point in that game. It is a 1-0 loss, to be fair. The opposition did have the better of things overall, but that was very disappointing. I think it's fair to say the wing play did not work. We'll also tell Harsman, even though we can't see the reaction, we are furious with his performance because that's just cost us a couple of points. And now we find ourselves in a very similar situation to where we were around this time last season, outside of the top three and looking in, needing some favours to get into a promotion spot. And back in the inbox off the back of that second game of today's episode, where Harsman's just had an absolute shocker in goal right at the end, and unfortunately, despite the fact that off the back of going back to our fluid counter-attacking style, it was looking a lot more promising. We do suffer a 1-0 defeat, and it does mean now that Eintracht Braunschweig have gone top of the Free Liga, and that is a bit frustrating, especially the way in which it happened right at the end. If they scored an earlier goal while we were on wing play, would not have had any issues, but we do lose after 6 games undefeated, albeit, as you can see, a lot of those games were draws. Was thinking a few changes might help deal with the way that we were playing, but maybe need to just change some things yet again with our fluid counter-attacking style. I think we're going to put our left back and right back now onto full backs on support and just hope that might make us a bit more solid defensively. We might also, seeing as it doesn't really matter, what role he does play, he's going to make mistakes. Put Harsman as a sweeper keeper on defense. Just feels like sometimes it can help us a bit more going forward when he does come out and claim the ball and get us right back on the front foot. And also Lucas Search will make sure that both of those centre backs are central defenders, because that seems to be roles that suit both Eagles and Search, seeing as neither of them are that great at passing, and hopefully can get back on track off the back of that loss. As I said, still not in a terrible position, but are going to need some luck in terms of teams above us now dropping points, and that didn't happen last season. Hopefully this time it does, and we can pick up our form just a little bit off the back of those last couple of games. But that will do it for today's episode. We've been a bit average off the back of the winter break, 2 draws, and then that 1-0 loss there to now the table-topping Eintracht Braunschweig. If you did enjoy today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. We'll come back at the start of next week, of course, and just looking at who we're playing in our next couple of games, to be fair, some really good chances for us here to keep the pressure on that top 3. We take on Vichy in 17th, Victoria Cologne in 18th, SV Meppen in 15th, Osnabrück in 14th, Klüster Münster in 16th, and Hoffenheim in 10th. So those are all games you'd expect us to get quite a few points out of. And I think we'll come back in late March, so we'll get for a fair bit over the weekend off camera, and we'll come back and take on Kaiserslautern in 5th, and then off the back of taking on BFC Dynamo away, which should be some easy points even on the road, seeing as those guys are bottom of the table, and take on one of our promotion rivals in Ingolstadt. So we'll come back at the start of next week and play that Kaiserslautern Ingolstadt double, and hopefully by then, with those fixtures we have got in between, get ourselves back inside that top 3 and make the most of that schedule that we do have coming up. So until then, thank you very much for watching, keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.
Thought I could do this, slept through the sadness.